Hi Gemini, welcome to your October 2025 tarot reading. I'm going to start by pulling 3 cards from this beautiful Salvador Dali deck. I'll continue to pull cards from another deck throughout the duration of this reading to just go deeper in the messages that are coming up for you. And yeah, I just want to start by saying, we've made it through to October 2025, just past a very pivotal eclipse season portal. And if you do want to go deeper into what this recent eclipse season from around late August into early October has meant for your sign, then I will link below an exclusive reading I did for that. It also opens up the reading actually a little further into the future to February and March of 2026 as well, because that's linked to the eclipse season story that we have just experienced. But if you're just sticking around for your October reading, I think we should jump right into that. Let's see what we've got. The Moon card. Very lunar, very eclipsy. This is the most recent past, so potentially this was about the past resurfacing. Your energy, your major arcana, the Lovers. And another major arcana card, the Temperance card. Striving for balance is a major storyline for you at the moment. So finding balance, eliminating extremes, this is kind of like the big picture for you. 3 major arcana cards tells me that you are in a pretty intense turning point sort of phase of life. This is about inner alchemy, the Temperance card. So the experiences that you've been having, and the Temperance card is a little bit more towards the end of the month, or kind of what your soul is gravitating towards next. So inner alchemy, when we experience a certain amount of life or events or situations in our relationships, dealing with unknowns that are cropping up, uncertainty, we are invited into this kind of process of gaining wisdom through the kind of integrating of these experiences and the sitting with them and the trying to understand and then the trying to rise above. Temperance card is about, well, temperance and moderation, but it's about this kind of spinning lead into gold in a kind of spiritual way. You're making richness out of the experiences that you've had, and that's the kind of inner alchemy you're headed towards. But it isn't the kind of plutonic, scorpionic, phoenix rising from the ashes kind of alchemy. From crisis we rise. This has kind of been taken a little bit more at a gentler pace for you. You've had more time, more flow with this, more peace in getting here. So the Moon card tells me that these eclipses, especially the one in Pisces around the 7th of September, so from around the 7th of September, Gemini, there's been a lot of, a lot of existentialism. The Moon card really can speak to our fears, the subconscious, what's laying in the kind of murky, subterranean parts of our psyche. And it's often about illumination there. So with the full moon lunar eclipse, this card is associated with Pisces, which took place around the 7th of September. There seems to have been a lot of bringing up to the surface of fears, of insecurities, of kind of grappling with the anxiety that comes with being in the face of uncertainty and not having the answer. The North Node is also in Pisces at the moment, which is orienting us as a collective and in our personal life towards the most positive sides of Pisces, which is a deep faith in the unseen, which is a surrender to the unknown. So that's kind of where you've been mainly tested, The Moon card, especially I think this is I like this card. I'm here, sitting here in Manhattan. Like, this looks like the Manhattan skyline to me. I think that this might speak to the chaos that comes up with the moon card. The darkness that looks like is over Central Park. And I know we don't enter Central Park when the moon is up and it's nighttime and everybody's gone to sleep, you know. There is an element of like lunacy with that moon card energy in this description, at least. So there's a kind of like when the lights are off, or when you're at home or you're alone with your thoughts, the moon card is activating some kind of recent like grappling with, I think, more major anxieties maybe. I love the way this reading unfolds, to the Lovers, to the Temperance, really kind of coming through that dark night of the soul almost this October towards support, alignment, partnership. The Lovers used to be called the choice. So when we have choices, we're feeling like we're in greater alignment. Wow, would you believe this? Gemini, 2 more major arcana cards to clear up your moon card, the Hanged Man and the Magician. So this has really been a period of intense kind of like quantum or like, you know, sped up condensed soul growth for you. And I really get the impression that September was a month where your whole perspective on something shifted. That's really what the essence of the Hanged Man is. It seems like sometimes, you know, you're stuck in limbo or you're suspended, but what's really happening here, it kind of gives me a Temperance-like quality at times. You know, what's happening here is in our busy lives, you know, when we're stuck in traffic or when we're running from place to place and running from our job to home and all of those other things that we need to get done in our life, you know, we kind of don't have very much time to just reflect or look at the bigger picture. And whatever has happened in your life, the suspension of the Hanged Man, the pause, has been very purposeful. It has been here to direct you towards the subterranean, murky, weird and wonderful moon card that is present in all of our psyche, you know. It has been giving you an opportunity to look at what's beyond the veil, beneath the surface. You know, it looks like giving you a chance to kind of work on your stuff maybe, or to see what's even there, to uncover and discover. Eclipses, full moons, Pisces energy. This is all about revelation and discovery. And discovery is often about seeing what has always been there. And that might be, under the light of that kind of moon card energy, an exposure of your more hidden realms and aspects of yourself. I understand I'm speaking very vaguely at this time, and that's because I've got 5 major arcana cards in front of me here. The minor arcana cards are what gives me the kind of context or the nuts and bolts, but major arcana, it's more archetypal. So I'm trying to figure out as I go, and maybe we'll get more minor arcana cards as we clear things up, but more archetypally speaking, the Hanged Man, the moon card, very Piscean, very Neptunian. This is a foggy, kind of illusionary, deceptive quality at worst rather, and the Magician card speaks to that too. The Magician card obviously is very good at concealment and manipulation and, you know, presenting something in one way, but really kind of got a trick up their sleeve. So that's the lower vibration of what maybe has been coming to the surface for you lately, where you've been maybe deceiving yourself, deceiving others, where you feel like you're being deceived, where you feel like there's a lot of illusion, you know. And I think because Pisces at its worst, and we've got so much going on in Pisces, we had the eclipse there, we have Saturn just returned to Pisces for the last time in 30 years. Neptune will join Saturn in Pisces in October, and we will never again in our lifetime see the North Node, Saturn and Neptune together in Pisces like this. So what would this mean on a more kind of karmic, evolutionary, collective experience? This would mean something like the Pisces rules glamour and photography and the silver screen, and that's all illusion, right? So the kind of more deceptive quality of what we're being told is coming to the surface collectively. But in your personal life, Gemini, it seems like the worst case scenario of what you've been dealing with on a more existential level is not knowing what to believe. On a more positive, higher vibration, which is also very available now for us, is a complete surrender into something that is unseen. Pisces is a sign of spirituality and transcending reality. So a kind of like more macrocosmic, mythic look overall of your experience and of what's unfolding. The Magician card in a higher vibration just tells me that during this recent period of stagnation, which has really kind of culminated for you in the month of September, be that because of a frustration or be that because there was a penny dropping moment where something has clicked for you now as of the last few weeks and you understood, Magician card, what must be done. The Magician card is about taking a dynamic action on something, using the skills, the resources, whatever you have accessible at your altar, which is an awful lot. The Magician card reminds you that you have more talents, skills, resources, allies, money than you may realize. So you have exactly what it takes to execute your needs or your means, and that's a good thing. Okay, so let's look into the Lovers card. Okay, so the areas of life where you may have been finding yourself pushed to extremes could be coming up in your relationship at the moment, as in your relationship is a mirror for this. So maybe in your business partnership, in your marriage, in your committed relationships, or with your roommates or whatever, you find that those people are almost like opposite to you. At kind of like, for example, if you're the person that's always running around problem solving, the other person, the mirror to you, is a person, and we're looking Devil card here at this, another major arcana card, but like this is the kind of anti-lovers, isn't it? This is like the unhealthy side of this, but it's when things are out of alignment or in an extreme. So let me just finish up that train of thought. Say Gemini, for example, and we can do vice versa here, but you're running around fixing everything, and then you're getting resentful because, you know, why is everything falling on you? Okay, you're creating a dynamic where the other person or party knows that you'll pick up the slack. Therefore, you're enabling them to be more passive, to be more scattered even, to be more non-committal. But if you were to just kind of stop figuring everything out, the other person would have to rise to the challenge, and therefore you would be enabling them to be more supportive. Like everything is working in a container together, and I think you're realizing this at this time. So it could be either way, and it's just that there's a discrepancy in your relationships, that this October, we're going to be moving into Libra season on the 23rd of September. So this October, you know, Strength card in reverse, the flaws, the discrepancies, the misalignment are going to be brought into focus. Libra is the sign of balance. Libra is the sign of relationships, diplomacy, and all of that kind of good communication and cooperation. That's kind of where your focus seems to be oriented, to sort of smoothing out any thorny relationship issues with friends, with colleagues, with your, you know, the people you work with, or indeed your lover. The Seven of Wands and the Five of Swords. This is a little bit thorny. I think I was right to say that, you know, this is very defensive. This is kind of abrasive. So there are tensions. There are problems to overcome or issues to solve. The Seven of Wands is about feeling like, well, some of you may be realizing that you put somebody on a pedestal, and they can't, you know, it's almost like you've created a sort of narrative around this person that they're finding it hard to fulfill these expectations, and it's like a vicious circle. And so that's something that maybe is going to be getting ironed out. Overall, the Seven of Wands can feel like finding the best course of action, pardon me, is difficult, especially with the Five of Swords there. It's like a tendency towards sabotage, a tendency towards kind of just defaulting to how you'd usually react. This is a little reactive. It's certainly defensive, on guard. Assuming the worst has been a bit of an issue, Gemini, in your relationships, whether that's you assuming the worst of others or being the victim of, you know, misunderstanding or being misunderstood. It's not a comfortable space in your relationships underneath the surface, but this is the perfect opportunity this October to open up communication. If the three, oh yeah, this is nice, at the bottom of the deck, the Three of Pentacles, the Six of Cups, and the Four of Swords, if there's any way to bring about this, you know, seeing Temperance here is very comforting to me, because I get the impression that you do solve the issues and you do resolve and temper and flow, and it's that inner alchemy that happens, like, you know, you sort of see your part to play and theirs, and all of the wisdom that you've gained through these experiences starts to matter to you, and it starts to become valuable to you in a sense. So if I was to say what these cards might be suggesting in terms of like an approach, friendship first, Three of Pentacles, just kind of like the very, very basic mutual respect and listening. And Six of Cups might be, you know, a tendency to think about the good old days. I think the Six of Cups has been coming up in your readings like over the last couple of months, Gemini, and it's about maybe all of this past reflection, and that was what the Moon card told me initially, like thinking about the past, the good old days, your childhood, your whatever, your foundations, your psychological, emotional foundations and family of origin, all that stuff. I think like you've been there, you've slept on it, you've dwelled on it, you've kind of been working with that to the point of like, okay, so let's kind of like bring it back to the present and see what's right here, right now in front of us, which is maybe difficult, okay? And to move forward from that, it's kind of just about sort of stripping back down to basics, a basic level of just friendship maybe, as a way to start, and not like overloading this situation with intensity. Temperance, Four of Swords, it's quite peaceful, like it's quite, when things are, you know, there can be a benefit in kind of going for the jugular or pulling the band-aid off and allowing kind of a more shamanic sort of approach to it. But then there is also a benefit of just, you know, taking your time at a pace that feels gentle for everybody involved, that isn't kind of like, you know, we know when to pause, we know when to go for a walk, we know when to stick on a comedy, you know. This is the kind of a delicate balance that you are working with this month, but I think your relationships are going to be all the better for it. There's certainly a focus on your relationships and the choice that you have, the choices that you have here. It's not at a dead end, it's not at a make or break ultimatum. There are certain issues to work through, but the Temperance card is very comforting to me. So let's have a look at what's coming through with this Temperance card. Maybe drop the defensiveness. Like, I'm just realizing here now that in the Seven of Wands and in the Five of Swords, you know, you're back to the Devil at the bottom of the deck, but like you're holding on to a weapon here, you know. Is this weapon, be it your words, be it your kind of excuse, or be it your what's that kind of thing, like your upper hand or something like that? Is the force of this weapon necessary for the battle or issue at hand? Is it necessary? The Temperance card is lovely, 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 coming out with the Emperor, which I'm like, okay, more force, but ultimately the Two of Cups, which is really, really coming together and understanding. There's a new promise, there are new terms and conditions to this arrangement. We are looking over our business agreement or our contract. We're looking over our responsibilities and chores around the apartment or the house if you're with, like, let's call it like roommates or whatever. Where you've been finding a lot of difficulty in finding balance in your life. I think it's like the classic like work versus home life, you know, like your outer world versus your inner world, maybe duties that correspond to family obligations. This is the archetypal father. And then what if you have to care for your dad or something like that, but then, you know, your marriage is suffering, and it's kind of like, or this can be the boss, you know, what if your boss is asking you to do every hour under the sun, and then, you know, your husband is thinking like, wait, hang on a minute, do you have time for me? It's kind of like some sort of a an issue like that. Now, of course, it could be any kind of like you're pouring way too much into one area of your life, trying to find balance in rather than running to extremes. That's something that I kind of just took away at the very beginning. Like when I saw the Temperance card, I thought, okay, so Gemini's trying to find balance at the moment. Let me break down this Emperor and Two of Cups, but I think I forgot to mention, you know, now would be a really good time to hit the subscribe button. And if you've liked this video so far, you know, definitely hit the thumbs up, leave a comment, share, any way you could engage with this video, I'd really appreciate it. Okay, so yes, I mean, it's by default or by like happenstance that you just continue to put this like forceful foot forward. I don't know what you are afraid of, but underneath that fear is probably a vulnerability, you know, letting your guard down. Why is that difficult at the moment for you, Gemini? You're a flexible and understanding, open-minded sign, but something is triggering this kind of like show of force or wanting to have the upper hand. I want to be the boss. I want to be in control here. So the Moon card obviously has triggered so much of a serious lack of control that, you know, that's why it's associated with Pisces. If there's one sign, and like there's so much, like I said, going on in Pisces for the collective at the moment with the North Node of our collective purpose there until summer next year, like we're all kind of gravitating towards, you know, a frequency of surrender and maybe greater sense of faith at a time that's very necessary. I mean, I don't think there's any coincidences with these patterns, but on a personal level to you, you know, the Moon card is associated with Pisces. It's because that's the last sign of the zodiac. It's kind of like where the karmic endings take place, and there is this sort of like ability that comes more naturally there to just sort of let go and let God, for want of a better word, or just completely surrender into what will be, and assuming usually that it's going to work out better than you could imagine if you let go. Oftentimes we can block what's coming in, the good things, right? We can block people that are trying to help us. We can block circumstances that are going to uplift us because of like resistance and fear. And I think because of all of this like existentialism and kind of dread of the Moon card and anxieties that have been coming up for you, they're coming from like places that are out of your control or out of your reach. So what do? Possibly you cling to these weapons or your defense mechanisms, and you almost double down and like try to control what you can, and it doesn't have a kind of a effect on your relationships that's, you know, in alignment or conducive to temperance, to flow, to understanding, to mutual give and take and gentleness and softness. So The Two of Cups promotes all of that. I think that the last 10 days or so of October, you're kind of able to put a lot behind you, come up with new promises or vows or commitments, new ways to honor one another and the current commitments that are in place. This doesn't have to be, strictly speaking, lovers by any means. You know, we can have agreements like this between our siblings, we can have agreements like this in, you know, in friendship groups, but this probably will show up for a lot of you in your significant one-to-one relationship, if that's in existence for you. And if not, maybe there is a kind of like pending Lover's card, Two of Cups situation for you that October invites you into like preparation for. And if that's the case, if you're kind of open to meeting somebody and that's what you, the kind of blessing you're hoping to cultivate in your life, well, maybe the defensive kind of expecting the worst signature is kind of one of those blocks, you know? Softening instead of a refusal to be vulnerable here, taking off the armor, those kind of things come up when I see the Emperor card. I mean, I probably should, I mean, she's not, this is just she could be wearing a flesh colored bodysuit here. So YouTube, don't come at me with any community violations because of this Temperance card, but there is a stripping off here. There's a bearing of all, and that's kind of reflecting a kind of a nakedness that comes up when we're obviously like a nakedness that comes up with bearing our soul, intimacy, emotional intimacy, of course, vulnerability. The dark night of the soul that has passed you with the Moon card's pretty jarring energy at times is becoming much more bright, light, and free-flowing. Temperance card is really peaceful and easy energy. It's not easy to get there because it requires all that inner alchemy, but when we're there, there's a real sort of sense of relief and understanding. All right, Gemini, I'll leave you with that and I'll see you soon. Bye.